my sincere pleasure to introduce the next speaker for our AVIT talk. We recently featured Fernando Mora on the cover of AV Technology magazine, and it was a really moving and incredible experience for me, for my editorial team. So Fernando is, he's at a place that I'm sure many of you have already visited, or certainly you know about. He is the manager of audiovisual and multimedia technology with the National September 11th Memorial Museum. So his talk, Seeing, Hearing, Remembering How AVIT Helps Tell the Story of 9/11. So Fernando, please give a warm welcome. Thank you. There you go. So that's just your next.
Good morning. I'm going to start off with a question. How many people remember what they were doing on September 11th, 2001? Show of hands. Pretty much everyone in the room. That's the type of that was. I'm going to start off with a video, short video. It'll give you the expanse and the size of the museum and what was built to commemorate that day. That's the North Pole facing One World Trade Center. That is the entrance. And as you go below grade, these are the two tridents that are the initial artifact. This is the initial audiovisual experience as you go down the ramp. This is what we call overlook. That's part of the ramp that overlooks Foundation Hall. We have our large events, also the largest space in the museum. To the left, you'll see the slurry wall. You see what's called the last column, which was the last column pulled out of the pile. There's the slurry wall. On the other side of that, there's the Hudson River, actually. This is some more interstitial spaces. What you see there is the antenna that once stood above 2 World Trade Center. And that is the quote by Virgil as you go down to what we call bedrock. This is what we call tribute walk, and it'll give you an idea of the size of the museum. It's about 7 stories tall. To the left there was the South Pool, so we're literally under the pools. This is a World Trade Center steel that was mounted as kind of a museum piece. There you see what's Foundation Hall with the column there and the slurry wall. So this is the museum. It's under the 2 pools. We encompass a vast majority of that area. Above, you'll see an atrium, which is the entrance point, as well as a small auditorium that we do our live events. And that's another view. You see the auditorium up top. Up there, we do small events where we have speakers. I had a treat of meeting Joe Torre there, a big Yankee fan, as well as FBI Director Christopher Wray. That's separate and apart from our large-scale events. So we hosted Pope Francis in October of 2015. He came in for a multi-religious cultural event. That was a very special day for us. A lot of nervous people in the room. Make sure that went off without a hitch, and it did. This was the dedication ceremony in May of 2014, where President Obama dedicated the museum. And we normally host a good part of world leaders and current and former presidents. There's George W. Bush, president at the time of the attacks. He came in unannounced one day, and we were told there was a VIP coming. We didn't know who it was, and then we saw him. I kind of just ran into him. That was an interesting experience. So these are some photos of the annual memorial ceremony, 9/11 memorial ceremony that we do every year on the day, ending with the tribute and light that I'm pretty sure everyone can see from miles around. That's we actually get as employees of the museum There is that's a roof of battery park parking facility. So we go up there, we have some wine and cheese, if you will. So that's kind of an interesting thing. So this is the museum layout. We have four control rooms. There's the auditorium control room, and the other control rooms down in the foundation hall space or bedrock. We also have classrooms as well, which is in essence a conference facility with four classrooms there, and it's a typical divisible rooms and such. Video conferencing, audio conferencing. We also, that's part of the same VLAN as the auditorium, so we have the part of the mini production system. We have two TriCasters, TC1 up in the control room in the auditorium, and 460 down in classrooms, and they share resources via NDI-HX, which is probably the only video over our network going on at the time, although we're going to expand that, and I'll speak about that in a moment. This is our systems, our system architecture. We have 30 racks consisting of 93 multimedia exhibits, 25 are locals. You can see there's quite a large system, largest system that I've ever installed and been a part of. And I've done some large systems as I work with AVISPL, did a couple of stadiums and such, and this system is the largest that I've ever been involved with. Also, we have several interactive exhibits as well. So it goes from the interactive to the immersive. So we have some immersive exhibits as well, and what you see there is Dataton Watch Out. So we have 17 watch out shows running at the same time, running off of 22 CPUs. So that is, I would say once in a month or so, I would come in, make sure that the warp and blends are pretty good, everything looks good, and colors are balanced and images are aligned. So in a snapshot, I'm going to get too detailed into this. We have a pretty large system. We have several players, 37 video players, several audio players, interactive PCs, 35 of them. That's not including the 22 CPUs that we use for our watch-out shows. So it's a pretty large, what I would call a traditional AV system, and that's something we'll be changing pretty soon. We use different types of transmission protocols, AC-based T, multi-mode fire, mostly Extron devices, going out to various projectors, two different types. This year we've upgraded to laser-based projectors, which saves me a ton of time in changing lamps and lamps blowing out and things like that. In 2018, we'll be replacing the other 42 projectors with laser phosphor-based projection. Several LCD screens, touch and standard, sizes and scope. And this runs off of 5 different VLANs. We have the control VLAN, auditorium and classrooms I mentioned before. We have watch-outs on its own VLANs, the interactives are on their own VLANs, and as well as AV power, which allows me to power cycle any device in the rack from a web browser. And we have that currently tied to Medialon, so I can do it from our Medialon control system, as you see there. That's part of the control VLAN. Classrooms, different sources, CPUs, projectors. Again, the watch-out, the amount of watch-out shows, Dell CPUs that run the interactive exhibits for our visitors. And that is, I mentioned before, NDI-HX video, 17 watch-out shows, et cetera. So that's basically a snapshot of the system. This is our Medialon web page. It's the home page for our Medialon control system. There we're controlling 250 devices or so throughout the space, running 900 tasks. So a task would be global startup, global shutdown, mute, unmute. It's a pretty large scale programming. I think Medialon said it's one of their largest deployed shows or installations that they currently have. So we run an instance of Medialon Overture. So basically this is a UI experience, and it just takes a look at the data coming from the Medialon control software and allows me to tailor the experience to how I want to see it. Do I want to see, what do I want to see? What's most important to me as I look at this up on my dashboard at my desk. So obviously I want to know if the system's on. I want to know whether it's unmuted or various other things. I also want to take a look at where are my lamp hours. I still have a ton of lamps. Most of my projectors are dual lamped, so I have in excess of 40, so that's 80 lamps that I'm taking a look at. I look to see if maybe one projector has lamps at 2 separate hours, let's say. So if one lamp on that same projector has 100 hours and the other one has 50, let's say, well, then that tells me that that lamp probably blew 50 hours ago. Although I should also be getting emails. Some of these projectors, our older ones, tend not to send out that data whether there's a lamp issue or not. Some do. Apparently the ones, our lamp-based ones, do not. And here is the laser-based projector. Now I have obviously everyone knows laser phosphor projectors run from anywhere between 20,000 hours and 60, depends if you're having an eco, maybe 40,000 hours. So I can take a look at the overall life cycle of the projector, as well as the individual lamps, as you see in the bottom, for every projector in the building. So that's a snapshot of what I can do. And also set alarms. So if the museum is on and a projector is off, that's an email. If the museum is open, in other words, or on, and there's a global mute going on, for some reason somebody pressed a button, that's an email. Various things that I can see before I get that phone call. Hey, we have a problem yesterday. I know, I'm dealing with it. And so as far as AV over IP. So we're looking at a few different solutions. These are the two that we're looking at now. We're also looking at AVB as well. In the future, we're going to do, 2018 is going to be our year to figure out what we want to do, which product we want to go to. AV over IT, at least for us from a user standpoint, is a little bit of a Wild West going on right now. So I just want to make sure that we pick the right product for our environment. So AV, at least from our standpoint, is still, you know, from our, at least at our facility, a lot of facilities that are still being built is rooted in the past. And what I could really call inertia, because that's the way we've always done it, right? We have a source device going through some sort of transmission medium and then out to a display device. And that is definitely something that we're looking to change, but at the same time, for us, people that came up through a traditional AV circuit, it's a little scary for us. So that's something that we're going to be taking a look at, specifically things like this. So this is a picture of Foundation Hall, which I showed you before, after Superstorm Sandy. So that was obviously a bad day. So what AV over IP will let me do is that it lets me remove all those players and all the source material or the source hardware and move it somewhere that's a little bit more safe in the event that that happens. So when I have to sell the idea of moving from a traditional AV system, which is in essence up 99.9% of the time. So why am I fixing a problem, at least from the standpoint of a CTO, why am I fixing a problem that really doesn't exist? And all I have to do is show them that picture and says, well, if you want that to happen again, you imagine if our racks were installed at that time, this happens again. And this was during the construction. So that's probably, the chance of that happening again is slim to none, but this is a scary photo for anybody, especially if you're the person in charge of making sure that the museum is up and running. Obviously, it's not going to be running after something like this. But as an AV manager, I have to put a plan in place to mitigate that from basically, you know, taking down the entire system. And it most likely wouldn't be of this scale, but even if it's a smaller scale, 2 feet of water, 3 feet of water, doesn't matter. Water is going to destroy any piece of hardware it comes in contact with, and I will have to replace it. How long would it take me to order different pieces of hardware and make sure it gets in, install it, configure it, get it working? You know, if this happens again, I want to be the first one back up, as opposed to the security system and all the other folks that are probably going to be lagging behind. So this is a dream, right? So if I can take a server take all of that hardware that I have and just take those streams. I only have about 300 gigabytes of video or content, video, audio, and everything all said and done. And I can put it up in an MDF, a place that's more secure, or even the cloud one day. Who's to say? I'm not tied to those physical control rooms, and I can have a backup. If the rack is small enough, hey, I can move it somewhere else that's a little more secure. So that is definitely what we're looking at. And notice at the end there on the museum floor where there's display devices, I don't have a black box there. So my dream is no black boxes. I just, at some point, I know that when the projector manufacturers and different manufacturers, like they did with HC-Base-T, you'll plug it right in. Not happening yet, but hopefully one day soon. And I guess the question is for everyone, at what point is this still an AV system, right? Is this still an AV system as we know it? And that's a good question. I would say yes, but a lot of us, it's a bit of a wake-up call to some who haven't scaled up to handle something like this. They're probably it's similar to like a medallion cab in a world of Uber. So again, that's my entire system. If I can take that, bring it into a server probably this tall, or a server rack this tall, that would definitely be what we would want to do, and that's going forward. So that's my time. I'm pretty fast. Wondering if anyone has any questions. Wow, is that good, huh? All right, thanks. Okay, thank you.